Sādhana bhavatu Sahanam bhunaktu Saha viryam karavamahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma vidvishavahai Om. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Yogena chittasya padena vacha malam sharirasya cha vaidyakena Yopakarotam pravaram muninam Patanjalim pranjaliranatosmi Abahu purushakaram Shankha chakrasidharinam Sahasra shirasam shvetam Pranamami Patanjalim Srimate Anantaya Nagarajaya Namo Namaha. Today is the last session of our 12-week program of the Yoga Sadhana, offered to you by Yoga4Unity, along with the Heartfulness Foundation. I would like to trace this journey that we have all of us made together with these 12 weeks in terms of our understanding and the flow of what we have learned. We began with the idea of dukkham, the starting point for almost every single one of us, reflecting on what is our dukkham. How do we experience it in our body, in our breath, and or in our mind? We explored how there is always an aspect within us, the adhyatmika, that is the primary cause of our experience, regardless of the trigger that may set it in motion, the adidaivika or the adibhautika, the external or the unascribable triggers, as it were. So how does Dukkham express itself and how do we experience it? Through Dauramanasya, Angamejayatva, and or Shwasa Prashvasa, mental discomfort, negative thinking, or an inability to be at ease in our body or in our breath. When we recognize these symptoms and we understand that Dukkham is the cause, we are slowly, sometimes very, very slowly, able to connect the dots of how we ourselves are the creators and the contributors of this space of constriction within and for ourselves. Staying with this inquiry of what is the cause of this dis-ease within ourselves, we come to face with various kleshas. Raga, the attachment to that which gives us pleasure. Dvesha, an aversion to all and anything that causes us pain or discomfort. Asmita, anything that threatens the way that we view ourselves. Abhinivesha, the fear of not remaining or continuing to be what we perceive ourselves to be. And all of these rest on this solid bedrock of avidya, which is not understanding our own true nature. So what now then? What do we do? What can we do? Now that we begin to understand what is causing us to come, what is possible? The answer to finding an ease within ourselves, regardless of these symptoms and causes of dukkha, is Kriya Yoga. Essentially, Kriya Yoga is a way to reduce our suffering. It is a tool to help us live in our everyday life with increasing equanimity. Sutra 1 of chapter 2 of the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali says, Apaha Swadhyaya Ishvara Pranidhanani Kriya Yoga. Tapas, cleaning, cleansing, purification. The burning or the ripening till they fall off of various samskaras or patterns of behavior that lead us into or keep us, sustain us even, in spaces of dukkha. Tapas takes us towards a quieter mind. So we start becoming more responsive rather than reactive, so that we are able to engage with the world in a more wholesome way. Swadhyaya, the second component of Kriya Yoga. The ability to observe ourselves without judgment. Swadhyaya actually enables us to look within and identify the various factors that cause dukkha. Ishvara Pranidhana, the third aspect, which along with tapas and swadhyaya make for what is called Kriya Yoga. Ishvara Pranidhanani is to trust the higher intelligence. It is a space that for me personally is one of humility, of an acknowledgement and understanding that I am only a cog in the wheel. I'm only a part of what is happening. This then is the framework of Kriya Yoga. The purpose of the Yoga Sadhana program is to help us to learn to integrate all these three parts into every aspect of our lives. To help us to understand that yoga is not simply what we do on a mat. It is that also. It is also what we do off the mat. How we live, how we treat others, the intentions that we carry into every single activity that we engage. What takes us in this direction of Kriya Yoga is our abhyasa, our practice, and vairagya, which is dropping what takes us away or recognizing and steering ourselves far from whatever is capable of taking us away from our practice. So to do all this, what propels me? What fuels me? What keeps me going? What brings me back? What sustains me when I fall, when I have taken 2 steps forward and 5 steps back? It is Shraddha, faith, belief, trust. It is that intangible which keeps me on the path, which holds me, which nourishes me, which anchors me. Shraddha. And this Shraddha gives us virya, the courage, the tenacity, the fuel, as it were, to keep going, to keep walking, to pick ourselves up, to dust off the debris, to not stop and give up. When all of these come together, when with Shraddha we do our abhyasa, we engage in vairagya, when we keep going regardless of the condition of the road, the pitfalls, our stumbles, then we begin this journey of internal transformation. At this moment in our session together, can we internalize and always remember that each moment, every moment, is an opportunity to start afresh. Atha. May I request all of you to close your eyes and simply breathe. Just staying in this moment, staying with our breath, taking each breath afresh. Inhale and exhale, gently, slowly, with kindness. Please take 5 mindful breaths. I will now request Lekha to start the next part of this session.
Thank you, Gauri. So like Gauri very beautifully said, Yoga Sadhana is about bringing yoga into our everyday life, on the mat and off the mat. I want to, share my own journey with Yoga Sadhana and my little discoveries as I walked along this path with all of you. So one of the first things that you kind of realize when you start doing the Yoga Sadhana is that you realize that how we perceive the world is through our mind. The mind is the tool that we use to perceive our place in the world, to perceive our relationships, to perceive life itself. And when the mind is disturbed, what we see is distorted. And then we react to it. And because our reaction was based on a distorted view of this world, it causes us suffering. And the cycle continues. So obviously, the more we cleanse our mind, the more quieter our mind is, the better the possibility that I may see reality as it is. I may understand what is happening around me and within me. And therefore, higher the probability that my response is based on a right understanding of myself and the world. And therefore, my response is probably the right response. And that is the promise of yoga. So as you work with all what Yoga Sadhana offers, one of the words that keeps popping up again and again is this word practice. When I listen to my teachers, I think this is the word that is probably most repeated. Any question comes back to practice. Yeah. So, when I initially started my journey, I would wonder, what is this practice? Because no matter what question I asked, it would end up with this word, right? So the word that I really want to, discover along with you is this word practice. What is this practice? Right? With time, I have had different definitions of this word practice. So I want to take you through this journey with me, with the work of one of my favorite artists, Molly Tan. So Vishnu, if I could have the slide. So my journey with practice started with Saras telling me, just sit quietly, close your eyes, and take a few breaths. And that is when I discovered that I breathe, and that one can actually sit quietly and watch the breath. And a breath is a very interesting entity. And that breath is not just breath. There is an inhale and there is an exhale. And then I discovered the pause between the inhale and the exhale, and the pause after the exhale and the emptiness. And I discovered, wow, this is not actually boring. This is interesting to be able to do this. And then I noticed that at the end of 5, 6 breaths like this, I felt ready to actually get up, stand up, and move. And then I discovered the joys of actually doing an asana practice, where, you just breathe, you move along with your breath. And as you open your arms out, you breathe in. And as you bend forward, you breathe out, and you move your body along with the breath. And the smile happened. It was not that the teacher said, you smile now. As I moved with the breath, something within me shifted, and I would spontaneously smile, because there was this feeling of joy that pervaded the entire being as I did the practice. And then my teacher said, how do you take this outside of your mat? How do you take this off your mat? And one of the first things that I would do after practice was I would drink my tea, right? So the idea was to actually drink mindfully. By the time I started doing my practice, I had lived on this planet for many, many decades. And I had drank very many cups of tea and coffee. But then the first time I actually sipped my tea, paying full attention, I felt the tingle, the warmth on my tongue, on my lips. And then the warmth, as I swallowed it, it went all the way. And I was like, I can actually feel this, sip of tea going all the way till my stomach. I was fascinated. I was suddenly aware of how beautiful this entire process of consuming something was. There was no rush. There was no thinking of what I would do after I finished my cup of tea. There was no worry about what I did. It was just being completely present. And then I discovered the joy of mindful walking. To walk, as Thich Nhat Hanh would say, as if you were kissing the earth with your feet. To really feel the balance, really feel the coolness of the floor under my feet. And when I took 1 foot up, the balance of being just on 1 foot. And I then discovered how hard it is to actually do that. When you walk really slowly and you lift 1 foot up, it's really difficult to balance. I didn't know that about myself. And so as I did mindful walking, I actually learned a lot about my body. I learned the differences between the left side and the right side of the body. I discovered something about the surfaces on which I walked. The floor felt different. The grass outside felt very different. It felt different at different times of the day. It felt warmer in the afternoons. It was much cooler in the early mornings and the evenings. And then I started looking around. I looked at the blade of the glass. I looked at the sky. I heard the birds. And suddenly I felt connected with the world around me. And then there was this evening practice of breathing, of journaling, of literally, looking through the day and letting go of whatever it was that worried me, that troubled me. And then I realized it was not just what worried me and troubled me that was easier to let go. What was harder to let go was all the things that made me feel good about myself. My little successes. I did it. I was good. That was harder to watch. But the practice in the evening, which ended up with a journaling, actually reminded me that a lot of things had to come together for me to be able to do something successfully. And therefore, the credit goes to all those things and not just to me. And therefore, I slowly started chanting a small prayer before I would go to bed. Just a way of saying thank you for all the circumstances that brought in the right teachers, the learnings, the books, the people, everything into my life so that I may be what I was that particular day. And doing this practice meant that I could actually rest. It was literally as if the burden of the world, the burden of my own sense of who I am, I could keep it down and I could just rest. And slowly, as I continued on this path, I realized that practice is anything. It is not just asana practice, although it is a big part of doing a practice. Practice is anything that cleans our mind. It is anything that quietens our mind. It is anything that reminds us to look within. It is anything that reminds us that when I hold on to something that causes me dukkham, when I want a specific outcome, when I hold a certain expectation very tightly, that'll end up in dukkham. It is in everyday activities that I realize that I am not alone on this journey, that I'm interconnected to everybody and everything around me. anything that reminds me of all this is practice. And then I realized that practice is to be able to observe that the mind goes through a lot of things. There are a lot of emotions. You feel happy, you feel sad, you feel upset, you feel angry. Practice is to be able to watch all this and not get caught up in any of this. Practice is to be able to take time off, to just sit and to reflect. Practice is to be where one is. So if you're listening with your entire being. If you're speaking with your entire being. If you're cooking with your entire being. Whatever you are doing, you do it with the whole of you. Wherever you are, you're completely there. That is practice. And to practice like this, one has to trust. Trust life. Trust that there is an intelligence that is unfolding through us and around us. And we are safe at all moments. But then I realized that it's not easy to practice. I would keep falling off the track every once in a while. I would travel and I would say there is no space or time to practice. And I travel a lot for my work. I would say I have 2 young children at home. Where is the time to practice? And then I realized that like anything else in life, if one has to hold on to one's practice, one needs help. And although this is my journey and I have to walk my path alone, I can have help. And there is always help available. So what is it that sustains our practice? What is it that enables us to hold on to a practice through all the ups and downs of life? Vishnu, would you move to the... And I discovered just 3 things, okay? I'm sure there are many things, but to me, it was 3 things that helped me sustain and nourish my practice. The first one, Vishnu, the next slide, was my teacher, my teachers. Every time I would fall off practice, I made a promise to myself. If I don't do my asana practice for 3 days continuously, I will message my teacher. And my teacher would say something, do something, would give me another practice or would just talk some sense to me or would inspire me in some way, or she would just smile at me and I would just get back on track. But as I worked with my teachers, and I have been with my teachers for a very long time, and it's been the same teachers. I have not shifted teachers. So when I am with my teacher for a very long time, my teacher knows me. She knows where I started my journey. She knows my patterns. She knows exactly what to say to me to get me back on track. But then I realized as I continue to work with my teacher that what my teacher is essentially doing is actually acting like a mirror. She's reflecting back to me a teacher who lives within me. And I don't know whether, and it's a very intermingled thing, right? Sometimes when I do my practice, I can hear my teacher's voice. And sometimes when I listen to my teacher, I can hear my own voice. I can say that, yes, I know this is true. I may not have realized it till that point, But there is deep within me a resonance. There's a feeling that, yes, what my teacher says is true because I know this. And this relationship between the teacher outside and the teacher within is something that brings you again and again back to practice. It literally keeps the fire of Shraddha going. It nourishes. The other thing that I have discovered is that just by using one's breath, just coming to this moment, atha. Sometimes, when I fall off, I beat myself up. I'm saying, what is the point of, learning yoga for 10 years, 12 years, and you keep falling off? And then I take the Yoga Sutra and I chant. And the very first word is atha. Atha Yoga Anushasana. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter that I have studied for how many ever years. Doesn't matter that I have fallen off more times than I have started. At this moment, it's an opportunity to come back, to start again, to, take 5 breaths, to pull out my mat and do a Tadasana, to actually, even if I have not heard, I've, lost my temper, whatever. Now, atha, there's an opportunity to take 5 breaths, anchor myself, and to listen, to observe, whatever it is that I have failed at. Just the first line of Yoga Sutra. Atha Yoga Anushasana. Start now, doesn't matter. It brings me back again and again and again back to my practice. Like I said, it is a solitary journey because we have our falls and then we pick ourselves up and we start again. But what I have realized is that it's good to have friends on this path. I have been very lucky that right from the very first moment that I started practicing yoga, I had people who were friends who walked this path along with me. They would hold my hand. There are days when I would say, I can't do this. It's too hard. And they'll be like, no, come, get up. It's okay. I'm also struggling. It's fine. Everybody struggles. So having that group that holds you, that, wipes your tears and says, it's fine, get up, let's start again. I have had friends who I would say, I am not doing an asana practice, and they'll say, come, let us do the practice together. And we would practice together for a few days and I would get back on track. I have friends who I would say, I'm not feeling up to it, and they'll say, come, let's chant. And by the time we finish chanting the first chapter, I would feel better. There are friends who I would say, I feel this dukkham, and they'll say, come, let me sit with you. Let us do some breathing. And I'll breathe with you. I've had friends who, after a surgery, when I really struggled to breathe, would just hold my hand and would chant for me or breathe for me because I was struggling to breathe. And I realized that that is very important to nourish my own Shraddha, because we are all human. We are all going to have those points where we say, I'm done, I can't do this anymore. And I realized that there is a lot of value in surrounding ourselves with people who practice, who are on this path, and they inspire us. So today, my teachers, my friends, my students, people who I claim to teach, but who are actually my teachers. Sometimes I have had students who practice more diligently than I do. And in fact, there are days when I get up and say, gosh, I have to teach, and therefore I better practice. So if you ask me who inspires me most to practice, I would say more than my teachers, it would be my students. Because they practice so diligently that I feel that I need to be in a particular space to be able to offer them anything at all. So that is the Sangha. And the Sangha is what helps you to continue on this very solitary journey, with a smile on your face, with a song on your lips, and a twinkle in your eyes, because you know that you're not alone. So let us go back to my favorite and probably our favorite sutra, Atha Yoga Anushasanam. So let us go back and connect with our breath, connect with this present moment, and renew our journey and say, let us start again. So close your eyes and just breathe. And as you breathe, just enjoy this breath. Now that we are anchored in this moment, I want to invite Saras to actually share with us what happens within us when we practice. Why is practice so effective? Why is it that every time I go to her, she sends me off with this one word again and again?
Thank you, Gauri and Lekha, for beautifully bringing together all the strands that we have been weaving together to create this beautiful fabric of life. So I'm going to ask all of you to actually get up and practice. I'm very inspired to chant the Yoga Sutra. I'm going to ask Gauri if you can start with Atha Yoga Anushasan and you chant that after every sutra I chant. Just Atha Yoga Anushasan. And all of you just get up and walk mindfully within your room, or if you want to just move out a little bit, make sure you're still listening to the chanting as you walk with your breath. Yeah. Yes, Gauri.
Atha Yoganushāsanam
Tapaha Swadhyaya Ishvara Pranidhanani Kriya Yogaha.
Atha Yoganushāsanam
Samadhi Bhavanarthaha Klesha Tanu Karanarthascha.
Atha Yoganushāsanam
Avidya Asmita Raga Dvesha Abhiniveshaha Kleshaha.
Atha Yoganushāsanam
Avidya Kshetram Uttaresham Prasupta Tanu विच्छिन्न उदाराणाम्
अथ योगानुशासनम्
अनित्य अशुचि दुःख अनात्मसु नित्य शुचि सुख आत्मख्यातिः अविद्या
अथ योगानुशासनम्
दर्शनशक्त्योः एकात्मता इव अस्मिता
अथ योगानुशासनम्
सुखानुशयी रागः
अथ योगानुशासनम्
दुःखानुशयी द्वेषः
अथ योगानुशासनम्
स्वरसवाही विदुषोऽपि समारूढः अभिनिवेशः
अथ योगानुशासनम्
ते प्रतिप्रसवहेयाः सूक्ष्माः
अथ योगानुशासनम्
ध्यानहेयाः तद्वृत्तयः
अथ योगानुशासनम्
क्लेशमूलः कर्माशयो दृष्टादृष्टजन्म वेदनीयः
अथ योगानुशासनम्
सति मूले तद्विपाको जात्यायुर्भोगाः
अथ योगानुशासनम्
ते ह्लादपरितापफलाः पुण्यापुण्यहेतुत्वात्
अथ योगानुशासनम्
परिणामतापसंस्कारदुःखैः गुणवृत्तिविरोधाच्च दुःखमेव सर्वं विवेकिनः
अथ योगानुशासनम्
एयं दुःखमनागतम्
अथ योगानुशासनम्
द्रष्टृदृश्ययोः संयोगो हेयहेतुः
अथ योगानुशासनम्
प्रकाशक्रियास्थितिशीलं भूतेन्द्रियात्मकं भोगापवर्गार्थं दृश्यम्
अथ योगानुशासनम्
विशेषाविशेष लिङ्गमात्रालिङ्गानि गुणपर्वाणि
अथ योगानुशासनम्
द्रष्टादृशिमात्रः शुद्धोऽपि प्रत्ययानुपश्यः
अथ योगानुशासनम्
तदर्थ एव दृश्यस्य आत्मा
अथ योगानुशासनम्
कृतार्थं प्रतिनष्टम् अपि अनष्टं तदन्यसाधारणत्वात्
अथ योगानुशासनम्
स्वस्वामी शक्त्योः स्वरूपोपलब्धिहेतुः संयोगः
Atha yoganuशासनम्.
Tasya hetuhu avidya.
Atha yoganuशासनम्.
Tadabhavat samyoga bhavo hanam. Tadrishe kaivalyam.
Atha yoganuशासनम्.
Vivekakhyatihi aviplava anopayaha.
Atha yoganuशासनम्.
Tasya saptadha pranta bhumihi prajna.
Atha yoganuशासनम्.
Yoganganushthanat ashuddhikshayi jnanadiptihi avivekakhyate.
Atha yoganuशासनम्.
Yama niyama asana pranayama pratyahara dharana dhyana samadhayaha ashtau angani.
Atha yoganuशासनम्.
Please come back to your seats. So I hope this particular sutra, Atha Yoga Anushasanam, will ring in your ears for a long time to come, reminding you to get back on track. Get back to your practice, get back to your teacher, get back to the teachings. And the good news is that we can begin every time afresh, without the regrets and the guilt from the past or the anxieties about the future. So essentially, that is the practice. Now, in Yoga Sutra and many of the texts, this whole idea of cultivating a practice, cleansing every part of ourself, what we call a samskara, and building a practice that's also a samskara, is compared to the work of a farmer, a gardener. We call the field of avidya, we call it avidya kshetram. It's a field. Okay, and in this field you have all the seeds of raga, dvesha, asmita, abhinivesha, all of them. We continue to generate these seeds very, very actively through the choices we make, the actions, our responses to what life throws upon us. And this whole cycle continues. So the role of the farmer is to make sure that this avidya kshetram is not fed actively. So I'm going to ask Vishnu to project that slide. So we have two kinds of fields. One is the avidya kshetram, okay, the field of avidya, where the roots are avidya itself, not knowing our true nature, and therefore feeding, cultivating, reinforcing, and building a huge forest of asmita. Asmita is like the trunk, very solid built trunk. We are always trying to protect it. And it's not just one asmita. You say, this is me, but there are so many forms of me that I have fed and reinforced. I continue to reinforce over and over again. The problem with this is that at any given point of time, at a very peripheral level, the way we engage with ourselves and the world, there is only one form of asmita that we continue to reinforce. That asmita that will give me pleasure, that will keep me comfortable and happy all the time. So there is a great raga towards that form of asmita, or forms of asmita. They say, I am this person, I am good, I am generous, I am beautiful, okay, I am intelligent, I want to be seen as a good person. That form. That form of asmita that we don't want to look at, okay, where we have a lot of dvesha towards. We want to push it down and cover it up and not even look at it. So when I say I am a person with a lot of honesty, I always speak the truth. I don't want to look at that form of me that is sometimes not honest, that actually can lie. Okay, we don't want to see that. And because we don't want to see that, we've unconsciously pushed it down. And we assume that we don't lie. We assume that we're always, very honest. But we're not. Most of the time, it is difficult to be all the time like something. And if we try to project that form of ourselves to the world, like the trunk that is visible to the world outside, then what is also me, that is the opposite of what I project, gets buried, but it has its own energy to manifest. At least it will create health problems when we're constantly suppressing and oppressing forms of ourselves that we don't want to see. Okay? So the trunk is asmita, the branches are raga and dvesha, and they have fruits. Raga has sweet fruits that will generate seeds of raga. Dvesha has bitter fruits or whatever taste you don't like, that will generate seeds of dvesha that will again fall back into this field of avidya. The roots is avidya. And it is through our actions, through with the choices that we make, that we are feeding this field. Okay. So as a farmer or a gardener, what is that you're feeding? What is that you're nourishing? We have to start looking at very carefully. So the seeds can be at prasupta level. They can be sleeping quietly. As long as they're sleeping quietly, we are fine. But remember, they're there. Because I don't experience strong ego or strong attachments or aversions or fear, does not mean that they're not there inside me. Sometimes we believe by doing some practice for a length of time, we have overcome all our negativity, we have overcome all our anger and aversions. And we also believe that. I used to be very angry before, not anymore. I used to have back pain, not anymore. And as long as you have a back, you have to be careful. So as long as you have the avidya kshetram, you have to be careful about these things, because they're only sleeping. And you have actually left them to sleep, which is great. Sometimes they come up as a little sprout, tanu, okay, tiny seedling. And you can actually look at it and uproot it. Sometimes it gets differentiated. You actually can see it as a strong feeling or emotion, but maybe you've not expressed it. And you choose not to express it. You choose not to give it life. But it is already manifested. So you can push it down, but it will create residue. It continues to create the residue. Or it can get into the udara level, like a complete full-blown state, where you have to simply experience the fruits of it whenever that manifests. So a practice is to tend to this avidya kshetram, to weed out constantly, to look into what is that I'm feeding, what is that I should not be feeding, so that I keep this avidya kshetram quiet. And later, through the strength of my practice, I will be able to look into this field and burn these seeds so that they don't sprout anymore. So the whole purpose of meditation is to develop that strength, to locate oneself deeply within and to watch this whole field and the manifestation. Okay? And to have the strength to locate what I need to burn and to have the fire to burn it and eliminate it. Okay? There is one more field that we could look at, okay, which is the field of viveka, that you build something. As a farmer, you want to grow good crops. You want to grow healthy plants, yeah, and nourish it so that it will feed you. It will not only feed the farmer, it will feed millions of people around the world. It will inspire, it will continue to generate clarity and understanding and peace and harmony in the world. Next slide. So that I would call the tree of viveka. Viveka is discernment. The ability to discern between what you are, what is the permanent, unchanging part of you, and everything else around it, which is constantly changing. The ability to discern and to know the truth. Yeah. This viveka, today, I don't think we truly understand what this viveka means. But at a very functional level, okay? If I am having a problem, say with my body, okay, of course I have to take care of my body. I have to do everything that is required with the food, with the practice, with the rest, the right amount of activity, everything. At the same time, I have to hold this understanding that the body is impermanent. It is changing, it will change. And at some point, we have to let go of that. Yeah, or it will let go of us. Now, that understanding is viveka. Or if I have a problem in a relationship and I'm really struggling, okay, to have that discernment that whatever I'm struggling with is part of Prakriti that is changing constantly. Okay. The pure part of me has no blemishes. Okay, just the pure light. And it is the same within the other. So if I'm able to connect to that pure part of the other person through that part within me, then I can handle all the complexities around the relationship. If I care for that relationship, if I value that, I have to learn to discern between the changing, impure parts of us and the unchanging, pure, eternal self. So even to hold this thought continuously will help us to build the strength of viveka, okay, to feed and to nourish this particular field or tree. Okay. And what is going to nourish it is this undercurrent. So I've drawn Abhyasa and Vairagya as a river that is flowing under the earth that will feed the roots of viveka. Abhyasa is the flow in a certain direction towards a quiet mind, a mind with great clarity and understanding, a mind that is expansive. Yeah, that is Abhyasa. So I have to know which direction this river is flowing. And Vairagya is to actually build an embankment so that this does not flow in other directions. It flows in that direction. And the river knows that it has to flow towards the ocean. We don't have to teach the river. So there is an inner intelligence that knows the direction of the flow. All that we are doing is to ensure that this groove is deepened continuously. That we remove the debris, we remove that excess of accumulation of dirt and all that. You know, we do that desilting, right, for the river or the streams. The desilting has to be done and deepening the groove so that it will flow. And then also create the embankment. You put a bund around the stream or the river so that it does not flow in different directions and start feeding the avidya kshetra. We want to feed the viveka kshetra. Yeah. And what really supports in that journey is Shraddha. So Shraddha essentially is the root of the Viveka tree. It is a root that I have to continuously strengthen and feed and nourish. Yeah. And then the seed will sprout, it will grow, it will become a huge tree, like a banyan tree, I would imagine, with millions and millions of fruits. And each fruit has millions of seeds. And when you open that seed, it is empty. Inside is the source of all life, the source of all intelligence. So the choice is with us. Do we want to feed the Avidya Kshetram, or do we want to feed Shraddha? So that Viveka can be born, can be strengthened. And this is not a personal journey, even though we have to make it alone. It is going to benefit millions of people around the world. Make the world a better place to live in. This is the promise of yoga. So, Atha Yoga Anushasana. And to pause here, just take 2 minutes to put down your thoughts, reflections, and then we'll have a longer Q&A session, sharing reflections. So before we open out for sharing and questions, I want to take this opportunity to thank the Heartfulness Foundation to be able to trust this process and give us the space and time to do this program. Dr. Veronique, that we fondly call Dolly, who has been part of this program, very actively involved. Vishnu, can we see you? Thank you. Vishnu has been the rock solid support behind us, literally holding that field and taking care, supporting us with the slides and putting things together. Thank you, Vishnu. I wanted to introduce our team. Lekha has been there with me from the beginning of Yoga Sadhana as an idea. Okay. And Gauri, who joined soon after. And this team, we have really been working very diligently through this program. We meet once or twice every week to plan, to discuss how we want to do it. And then last minute, like today, what happened is bring something new, and they will learn to adapt and flow with it. So thank you, Lekha and Gauri, for really taking care. Thank you, Sangeeta. I think she's not here today. She's helping us with the back-end work with Yoga Sadhana. So Yoga Sadhana is our favorite program. We believe that this is really the signature program of Yoga4Unity, because this is what expresses our essence of, or the core belief that we hold about yoga. That yoga is something that every individual on this planet can benefit from. And how do we help people to access this knowledge, access the practices in a holistic manner, that people learn to look at it through all angles and take it and work with it from wherever they are in their life. Okay? Whatever be the path, whatever be your aspiration, yoga can be part of your life to bring out the best that you are capable of. So we are constantly reinventing this program through the kind of group that comes together, the kind of questions that we encounter, and our own life process. You know, we are just sharing a part of our life with you and our journey with you through Yoga Sadhana. So every program is very unique and different. Therefore, people can come back to Yoga Sadhana again and again. It will still be new and fresh for you. Doesn't matter if you've been practicing yoga for 20 years or 30 years, or meditating for a long time, or you've studied all the texts, and does it really matter? Because we begin again with Atha Yoga Anushasana. Just learn to breathe and move. Just learn to walk mindfully. Okay, coming back to the basics. I want to thank Shipra and Bindya. Bindya, can you show yourself? Thank you. Thank you for being there to help us with the demonstration. Shipra unfortunately met with a very bad accident last month, and she had to go for a surgery to repair her leg, and she's recovering very, very well. So we are really missing her dearly in this session. Thank you, Bindya, for supporting, taking. And then, of course, there are millions of people and pets and family and all of that continue to support us. Even though sometimes they crib and they complain and they do all that, they continue to support us through this journey so that we can reach out to more and more people. So would really like you to take some time to look at our website, the Yoga Sadhana actual program, 8-week program, which will take you more in depth into all these concepts that we delved into and more, and help you to lay a strong foundation for your own practice and inquiry. Okay. And as a community, how can we build a certain level of consciousness that can then pervade this world and help deal with the crisis at so many levels that we are going through. So can somebody put the link in the chat? And of course now open to your questions and reflections. Community board. Oh, so I think some of you have shared on the community board. Vishnu, will you be able to share that?
Yeah. Excuse me, I did prepare the homework, but I could not find any way to put it onto the community board because I didn't know what I was doing.
Okay. So, should you want to share it? Do you want to share your picture on the screen? Then maybe Vishnu, you can give the share screen option.
I drew one on my art paper. I'm not an artist, but I'm trying to be. And so that's not on, I don't know what to do.
Can you take a picture of that?
I thought so. I was going to send you an email, but I didn't know what to do.
Okay, can you just show it to the camera? That's all you have to do. Just take your drawing
Where's the,
and show
there-
it. Yeah,
can you see anything? Oh, my camera
yeah,
video.
yeah.
It's
Ah,
very tiny.
okay.
And it's only a scribble, and I wanted to do it again, but you said to do that.
You want to talk about it? Leave it there.
Yeah, well, the one side, the current shape is little seeds in the ground, but they have potential. I drew it too crushed. And in the other side is the blooming beauty and the sky and everything. That's the aspiration. And in the middle is me squirming because there's too many questions, and there's a big sort of a thunderous cloud on top, but not always the same. It's changing. The gap is always changing, and I don't know what to do with it. That's the story. Does it make sense?
Absolutely. Thank you. That's beautiful. The good news is that it's changing, so it can change in the direction we want.
Yes. And I've had an example today. That I'm in a gap. I'm in a gap with my morning meditation at the moment, where I'm reassured. And I heard someone say, Leka, that you can always go and be in touch with your teachers. It's very reassuring. Thank you. Because we do get gaps, don't we? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I share the piece? Share the piece.